I'm Shauna's younger sister. I met her when I was born. She literally held me in a hospital. But yeah, that's the idea, is how I am correlated. So, what do I remember her stages? I mostly, honestly, she was probably, what, like 3 when I was born? 4? She's 23. Her turn 20. She's 24. Yeah. 5? Anyway, what I think Shauna was going through was a lot of confusion and pain. Because not a lot of people are born with cancer, you know? Not a lot of people are born with something and just are like, this is your life, you don't get to experience any of the good and then go through this and get to appreciate still living. No, you get thrown into this and you gotta deal with that. I know, me being born with ADHD and depression, I was confused. So I can only assume she was confused. Because you wonder what it's like for other people, what it feels like. Because she definitely has underlying symptoms? Would that be the right word? She's in pain, you know. A lot of people who have dwarfism have chronic, you know, joint pain and muscle pain. And she definitely has that. But she also, we don't know what her side effects, that's the right word, what her side effects of the surgery were. And she was basically kind of just told, figure it out. And that's not fair. That's not, I mean, nothing in life is fair, but that is unusually cruel, you know? And everyone expects her to be happy, and normally people who are happy after going through something like that is people who were like 20 and then they went through that and they saw how life could be, and she was born with that and saw the worst in humanity growing up. You know, people were not nice and understanding of her situation. So it was, I don't know. I feel like she definitely was angry. And we all know she was angry. We all know she was angry. But it was a rightful anger, you know? My personal experience that may have affected me was just growing up with her. Obviously, growing up with her, I have I think, different outlook on people with disabilities in general. You know, not everybody is what they seem. You know, Shauna has something that you can very visually see, and then I go through something that you definitely can't. And then my mom went through something that you couldn't see. And my dad went through something that you kind of could see, and so did my mom. And growing up, that kind of was like just a hint to me that everybody was going through something, and sometimes when people are angry at you and say they don't like you, it's just because they're angry in general, you know? But growing up with a sick sibling in general is difficult. Because obviously your parents are going to be more worried about them, and you're going to be more worried about them. And so it sometimes felt like I was the youngest and the oldest, you know. I don't know. I definitely felt, and I guess still do feel like I hold a lot of responsibility for Shauna. You know, going out, my parents always told me to keep an eye on her and stuff. And growing up, I was always told to think about her, do this and do that, you know. And we would go on hospital trips, and I would see it, and I would understand, but it still was confusing, you know. I think if we could go back, I wish we wouldn't have put her in anger therapy and just therapy. Because being asked repeatedly why you're angry, and at that young of age you can't understand, just makes you more angry, you know? And I think if she just went to therapy, and honestly, I think if my family might have just kind of done a little something, because any family with a child that is sick, you're naturally going to be more worried about that child. And that's okay. And that's expected. And that is not saying they are faulty in any way. That's what you should do. But when you have more kids, I think you need a little bit more help. And that's okay. And I wish we kind of did that. Because I think it would have helped me and Shauna's relationship in the long run. Because when I eventually went to therapy, she taught me how to understand Shauna more and understand my feelings with Shauna. Because obviously I wasn't angry at her, but I was more angry at being told to always think about her. Because it never felt like that was reciprocated. And that was just because Shauna was angry. And that was okay. And I just needed to listen a little bit more. And in turn, she listened a little bit more. And sometimes I wish that my whole family just kind of did that. Not to listen a little more, just go and see an extra set of ears and research and look into things. You know? I think that would have helped just her confidence in the world, because I feel like then Mom wouldn't have the repressed sadness that she does. I feel like Dad, though he doesn't say it, I feel like he definitely, you know, has some guilt because he knows Mom goes through guilt. And so I'm sure he probably is like, if I pushed a little harder, she would have. And I know Shauna went through a lot of stuff. And Tara just doesn't talk about her stuff. So I think that if we all just saw an extra person at that time, and I think if most families that go through that saw a little person at an extra time, it would just be another help. Not saying that anybody's doing bad, just some weight off their shoulder would be nice. You know? That's all. That's mine. So that was Rylee for you. Rylee out. Oh boy. So the stages that I knew Shauna were toddler, so tomboy her. And now I'm supposed to talk about what she went through in tomboy her. Okay. Tomboy her was pretty happy. You know, she had a lot of friends. She was pretty... She wasn't all that shorter compared to everyone else yet, so... You know, she was just running around doing her thing. You know, wearing her chokers, and we were okay. We weren't, you know, friends, but she didn't like say she hated me every day, so she wasn't that angry. But we didn't talk. Next stage was, all I can remember is more hospital, because they were talking talking about how suddenly she's seen as shorter, and it's like this 6th grade, theater where she's playing Molly Pitcher, and she's having to carry this giant pitcher, and everyone else is taller than her, and she is struggling. And we're trying to get her growth hormones, and she's on period blockers, and she was not happy, and I think she was going through pain because of them, and the growth hormones, they weren't reacting well, they weren't making her grow, they were just making her in pain. It's like growth spurts at all times, but then not growing. So it's like, why am I in pain? It's just, she wasn't happy, and she wasn't having a good time, and I think she was stopping cheerleading at that point. So socially, she also was not doing well and happy, because that's when that happened. We weren't talking, so I would just kind of listen to try to piece it together. At this point, she was saying she hates me, and I was saying, I love you, please. She's like, no. And I was like, okay. But yeah, then her period happened anyway, and that's when I learned that girls' bones kind of fuse when their period happens, which is why you have to put them on period blockers. So she was pretty much in pain because of the period blockers, and then she was in pain because of the growth hormones, and her period came anyway, which is just pain in itself. And then at that point, at around 15, I believe, she was dealing with the daunting fact that this was going to be the height she was at for the rest of her life. All before, it was just, hey, I went through cancer, sure, but I'm here and I survived, and now it's suddenly, hey, you survived, sure, but guess what? We still got you. It was mean and a hard thing to deal with, and I don't know if she's ever really dealt with coming to terms. I wouldn't. I don't come to terms with that. I'm just sad, So, I don't think she would. It would be a hard thing to just be like, hey, this is where you were at. You didn't think that this was what your life was, but this is. Now you thought you were going to be normal, and your mom talked about you having kids, and now you're wondering if that could even happen. Good luck, That was difficult, and she was not happy, And then we get more towards the end of high school, and we're friends, I have the secrets to understanding Shauna, thanks to my therapist, and I'm talking to her about everything, because with listening to her comes her listening to you, and her about my depression, and gotta take my antidepressant too. I told her about my depression, and my sexuality and stuff, and she was one of the first people I told, because she would tell me all these things that she thought, and her insecurities with her height and what she thought she could be growing up, and the reality that not everything is on the table, even though everyone is telling you it is. It's just not, you know? She can't be a vet for giant animals because she can't stick her hand down, up a cow's butt. She just can't. Maybe calves, not cow. These are her words, not mine. So it was a hard reality, and no one blamed her for being angry. And when I, got to know her, I definitely did not blame her for being angry. And she was one of my biggest advocates with being, upset and me going through my depression and my sexuality and me understanding my ADHD better because I told her how I don't have an imagination. And we talked that out and communicated. She was like, what the heck? And I was like, I don't know. I'm ranting. Adult her, though still scared, has overcome a lot of insecurities and a lot of hurdles that I think younger her thought she wasn't going to be able to do. She has gotten out there and she has conquered the world, and she's still intimidated, but everyone is. And I think adult her has a lot more understanding and grasp, but is still, growing. No, you gotta stay. You ruined the continuity and also the warmness of my left thigh. What I think Shauna was going throughout that, a lot of confusion and pain. She's gonna ruin my take. She's gonna ruin my take. I didn't get an answer. That was you. I'm gonna do it again. Please don't make me watch this with you again. I think she's laughing at me. I want to be there for that. Stages. Get on topic, Rylee. Okay. I'm so stupid. Okay. Learning about what she is going through because of cancer. Because I feel like every day we are learning new side effects. So that's my take, because the dogs are barking. Rylee out. Bye-bye! Oh, why is it stopping?